There's an island in the Caribbean that cost $77 million. No one lives there full time. No tourists are allowed. But somehow it became the most infamous location in the world. It was called Little St. James, and it belonged to a man named Jeffrey Epstein. You've heard his name, but what really happened on that island, and who was really involved? This isn't just about one man. This is about a scandal that reached the highest levels of power, money, and influence. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear will change how you see the world. Picture a private island in the Caribbean, sun-drenched, secluded, and surrounded by crystal, clear waters. Sounds like paradise, right? But for the young girls who arrived there, it was anything but. This island, Little St. James, was purchased by Jeffrey Epstein in 1998 for $95 million. By 2016, it was valued at over $77 million. It was a fortress of secrecy, a place where the elite could go without being seen. Epstein, a financier with no known source of legitimate wealth, owned this tropical paradise. He also owned a private jet, a mansion in Manhattan, and a sprawling estate in Palm Beach. But it was Little St. James that became the center of his empire and the epicenter of a scandal that would shake the world. Why was it so important? Because this island wasn't just a vacation spot. It was a place where Epstein allegedly brought underage girls, some as young as 14, for what survivors describe as sexual abuse and trafficking. Girls were flown in from all over the world, some were paid. Some were coerced, many were terrified, and the worst part, the people who visited this island, the politicians, celebrities, and billionaires, were not just witnesses. Some were participants. The island had everything: a main house, guest cottages, a private dock, and even a tennis court. But behind the luxury was a hidden world of manipulation, exploitation, and silence. Epstein's inner circle controlled access. No one got in without his approval, and no one got out without being silenced. But how did a man with no clear business model afford all of this? How did he gain access to some of the most powerful people on the planet, and why did the justice system seem to look the other way? In this video, we're going to pull back the curtain on the Epstein Files, the legal documents, testimonies, and court records that reveal a web of corruption stretching from Wall Street to Buckingham Palace. So if you've ever wondered why Epstein was able to operate for so long, why he died in a federal prison under suspicious circumstances, or who else was named in the sealed court documents you're in the right place. This is the first chapter of a story that will leave you stunned. Let's begin. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't always a billionaire. He started as a math teacher in New York. Then, out of nowhere, he became a financial genius advising world leaders and billionaires. But how? Who opened those doors? Epstein had clients like Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, and even Prince Andrew. He was flying them on his private jet, the infamous Lolita Express. But behind the scenes, whispers were growing. Rumors about underage girls, secret flights, hidden islands, and no one was doing anything about it. Why? Jeffrey Epstein was born in 1953 in Brooklyn, New York. He came from a working-class family. His father was a school janitor, and his mother was a secretary. There was nothing in his background that suggested he would one day become one of the most powerful and mysterious figures in the world. He started his career as a math teacher at a private school in Manhattan. But by the early 1980s, he had completely changed course. He entered the world of finance and rose faster than anyone could explain. In 1981, he landed a job at Bear Stearns, a Wall Street powerhouse. Within just a few years, he was managing multi-million-dollar portfolios. But he didn't have a degree in finance. He didn't have formal training, and yet, he was suddenly handling the money of the ultra-wealthy. By 1988, he opened his own financial advisory firm, Epstein & Co., and that's where things get really strange. Epstein's client list reads like a who's who of the global elite. He advised world leaders, billionaires, and celebrities. He had offices in New York, London, and Paris. He traveled on private jets. He hosted parties with celebrities and royalty. But how did he get access to these people? What was his real business model? And why did so many powerful people trust him with their money and their secrets? In 1991, he met Prince Andrew, the Duke of York. The two became close friends. Epstein would later be seen with Andrew in photos that would become infamous. In 1992, he met Donald Trump, who would later call Epstein a terrific guy. Trump even said he had known Epstein for 15 years and that a lot of people liked him. And in the early 2000s, Bill Clinton was photographed boarding Epstein's private jet, the Lolita Express, multiple times. But while Epstein was building his network of powerful friends, rumors were swirling about his private life. Girls were disappearing. Parents were reporting their daughters missing, and the police were getting calls. Epstein had a system. He would recruit young girls, often from troubled homes, and lure them with money, gifts, and promises of modeling careers. He paid them for massages, but those massages were far from innocent. He also had a network of assistants and associates who helped him. The most infamous was Ghislaine Maxwell, the daughter of British media mogul Robert Maxwell. She was his gatekeeper. She helped recruit girls. She was seen with them, and she was present during some of the most disturbing events. So how did Epstein go from math teacher to billionaire financier to accused sex trafficker, or while maintaining ties to the most powerful people on the planet? The answer lies in the second chapter of this story, the first girl who dared to speak out. Because it was her courage that finally started to crack the wall of silence around Epstein. And what happened to her and the other girls will shock you. In 2005, a 14-year-old girl came forward. She said Epstein was paying her for massages and it wasn't innocent. She wasn't the only one. Dozens of young girls started coming forward. Epstein was arrested. The world thought justice was coming, but what happened next shocked everyone. He got a secret plea deal, a slap on the wrist, registered sex offender status, avoided jail time, only 13 months, and he got to leave every day to go to his office. That's how the system protected him. The first major crack in the Epstein facade came in 2005 when a 14-year-old girl from Palm Beach, Florida, came forward with a shocking story. She said she had been recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell, who offered her $300 to give Epstein a massage. The massage took place at Epstein's mansion, and it wasn't innocent. The girl's mother was suspicious and reported the incident to the police. What followed was a full-scale investigation and the first real public reckoning with Epstein's alleged crimes. But instead of a full prosecution, Epstein was offered a secret plea deal. Here's how it worked. Epstein would plead guilty to 2 state charges: solicitation of prostitution and procurement of minors for prostitution. In exchange, he avoided federal charges that could have put him in prison for decades. He was sentenced to 18 months in jail, but served only 13, and even that time was shockingly lenient. He was allowed to leave prison every day to go to his office. He had a private cell, he had unrestricted phone access, and he was never registered as a sex offender, a fact that baffled victims and legal experts alike. But the deal didn't just protect Epstein. It protected everyone around him, because under the terms of the agreement, Epstein's victims were not allowed to testify in court. They were silenced. Prosecutors agreed not to pursue additional charges, and that meant other names connected to Epstein would never be investigated. The girl who started it all was just 14 when it began. She later became a key figure in the civil lawsuit that would eventually force the Epstein Files into the public eye, and she wasn't alone. Dozens of women came forward after the plea deal, many of them saying they had been abused by Epstein as minors. Some said they were flown to his island. Others said they were trafficked to his homes in New York and Paris. But the plea deal shielded Epstein from the full consequences of his actions, and it shielded the powerful people who visited him, including those who flew on the Lolita Express. So who were the passengers on that plane? And what did they know about Epstein's operation? That's what we'll uncover next, and the names on those flight logs might surprise you. Epstein's jet, the Lolita Express, was more than just a plane. It was a who's who of the powerful. Flights to his private island were filled with politicians, celebrities, and royalty. Prince Andrew was seen. With Epstein's victims, Bill Clinton flew on the jet at least 26 times. But the most shocking name, Ghislaine Maxwell, the daughter of a British media tycoon, became Epstein's right-hand woman. She allegedly helped recruit girls, and when Epstein died in prison under suspicious circumstances, the world realized this story was far from over. The Lolita Express, a Boeing 727 registered as N9 172 UA, became the most infamous private jet in modern history. Epstein owned it. He used it to fly people to his island, his homes, and wherever he needed to go. But the real story lies in the flight logs, the detailed records of who flew on the jet, where they went, and when. These logs were released in court documents years later, and they revealed a shocking list of passengers. One name that came up repeatedly was Bill Clinton. According to the logs, he flew on the Lolita Express at least 26 times. Clinton visited Epstein's island multiple times. He was seen with Epstein in photos. And he even made a trip to Africa on Epstein's jet in 2002. When asked about it, Clinton's spokesperson said the former president only flew with Epstein to visit humanitarian projects. But many people questioned why Clinton would need to fly on a jet owned by a convicted sex offender, especially after Epstein's 2008 conviction. Then there was Prince Andrew, the Duke of York. Andrew was seen in multiple photos with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. He was also photographed with one of Epstein's victims, Virginia Giuffer, formerly Roberts. Giuffer claimed she was forced to have sex with Andrew when she was just 17 years old at Epstein's home in London, and later at Ghislaine Maxwell's home. Andrew denied the allegations, but the photos tell a different story. Another frequent flyer on the Lolita Express was Donald Trump. Trump had known Epstein since the 1980s and even called him a terrific guy in a 2002 interview. Trump later tried to distance himself from Epstein, saying he hadn't spoken to him in years, but according to the flight logs, Trump was on the jet at least once in 1992. Then there were the celebrities. Actors, models, musicians, all linked to Epstein in some way. Kevin Spacey, Matt Lauer, Tommy Hilfiger, and Stephen Hawking were all listed in the flight logs. Some claimed they had no idea who Epstein was. Others said they were just visiting the island for parties or business meetings. But the question remains, how could so many powerful people have interacted with Epstein and not know what was happening? And what about Ghislaine Maxwell? She wasn't just Epstein's girlfriend or assistant. She was his gatekeeper. She was the one who recruited the girls. She was the one who set up the appointments. And when Epstein died, she disappeared only to be arrested in 2020. Her trial finally gave the world a glimpse into the inner workings of Epstein's operation. But the story wasn't over. Because when Epstein died in prison under suspicious circumstances, the world realized that the Epstein Files still had more secrets to reveal. And those secrets were about to become public in a way that would shake the foundations of power. In 2019, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. Officials called it suicide, but the autopsy said otherwise. His death raised more questions than it answered, and then came the court documents, thousands of pages, names, flights, victims. Some names were redacted, others weren't, but the public got a glimpse into a world where the elite were protected, where girls were treated as currency, and where silence was bought with money and power. On August 10, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. The official cause of death was suicide by hanging, but the details didn't add up. Epstein had been removed from suicide watch just days earlier. His cellmate had been moved out. Surveillance cameras were mysteriously not working. And most disturbingly, his neck showed signs of multiple fractures consistent with manual strangulation, not hanging. The autopsy was conducted by Dr. Michael Baden, a former New York medical examiner. He concluded that Epstein's injuries were inconsistent with suicide. Epstein's death was a turning point. It reignited public interest in his case and led to the release of thousands of pages of court documents. These documents, known as the Epstein Files, were unsealed in 2022 after years of legal battles. They contained sworn testimonies, flight logs, and victim statements, and they named names. Some names were redacted, but not all. Virginia Giuffer's testimony was among the most explosive. She named Prince Andrew, Alan Dershowitz, and others as people who had sexual contact with her when she was underage. Dershowitz denied the allegations, but Giuffer provided specific details that matched the timeline of her abuse. The documents also revealed the extent of Epstein's network. He had connections to intelligence agencies, political figures, and corporate executives. And Ghislaine Maxwell's trial in 2021 revealed how Epstein's operation was carefully orchestrated with a system of bribes, threats, and blackmail to keep victims silent. But even with all this, many questions remain unanswered. Who benefited from Epstein's death? Why were so many powerful people connected to him? And what happened to the girls who were trafficked through his network? The final chapter of this story is still being written, and it's one that may never fully be known. But one thing is certain, Epstein's death did not end the story. It only opened the door to the truth. The Epstein Files aren't just about one man. They're a mirror into a system that protects the powerful no matter the cost. Victims are still coming forward. Lawsuits are still being filed, and the full truth, we may never know it all. But one thing is clear, Epstein didn't operate in the shadows alone. He was protected, and those protections came from the top. If you want to know who's named in the Epstein Files, if you want to see the list of flights on the Lolita Express, hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll break it all down in next video, because the story doesn't end here. Epstein Files are more than just legal documents. They are a window into a hidden world, a world where the powerful operate with impunity, where victims are silenced, and where money can buy more than just luxury. They can buy silence. Epstein's case is a case study in how the elite protect their own. It shows how systems from the justice system to the media can be manipulated to serve those in power. But it also shows the power of survivors. Women like Virginia Giuffer, Maria Farmer, and dozens of others risked everything to come forward. They were threatened, they were smeared, but they never backed down, and because of them, the world finally started to pay attention. The Epstein Files have led to lawsuits, arrests, and ongoing investigations. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison. Victims are suing powerful individuals and institutions, and the public is demanding accountability. But the truth is still incomplete. Many names were redacted, many documents remain sealed, and the full extent of Epstein's network is still unknown. So what's next? We're going to dive deeper into the Epstein Files and show you the names that were hidden, the flights that were taken, and the people who were involved. If you want to know who flew on the Lolita Express, who was named in court documents, and what the victims testified under oath, then hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. And if you want to go even deeper, because the story of Epstein and his network is far from over, and the truth is still waiting to be told,